Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Geeked Out. My name's Kyle,
And I'm on.
and this week, with the latest Pixar movie, Inside Out 2, to be released in just a matter of days, we decided to go back and watch one of the actually, it was the second Pixar movie to come out, and as Juan and I have both discussed, we feel it's probably one of the most underrated Pixar movies, and we watched A Bug's Life.
Yes, sir. I think it is the most underrated movie and it only solidified it from my rewatch. I freaking love this movie, man.
No, I couldn't agree more, and you're right. It is very underrated, especially considering that it was it was only the second movie Pixar came out with. I mean, obviously the first was Toy Story, and that was such a groundbreaking feat in animation and in the world of film. But then
Yeah,
they came. I feel like if this movie would have failed, the landscape would look a lot different on the world of animation.
maybe, but this movie gets so overlooked. I believe that's because that it was so closely released after Toy Story. I think Toy Story had such a hold over the culture that nobody was really checking for A Bug's Life as much, because a Toy Story, that wave was still rushing through the United States, or the world, really. People were still obsessed with that series.
Well, the first Toy Story came out in '95, and this movie was released November 25th of 1998. I don't know why it was
Oh,
released so late, like so late in the year. I mean, usually movies released around that time. I get that you want the Christmas money and that, but this type of movie you'd think would be released in the summer. I mean, if you're expecting it to make big money, you release the movie in the summer.
when was it released?
IMDb said November 25th. I'm actually, as we're recording, I'm going to double check that because that doesn't seem right to me. I don't know why.
November. Maybe they were pairing it with the Thanksgiving weekend audience.
Yeah, that could be. I'm looking it up now and seeing if I can.
That would be the only reason why they would put that in that movie, in that role, unless there was some bigger movies.
The only
But
disparaging
I
thing
don't
I'm
see.
finding is November 20th, so it's only 5 days. So that must have been when it came out. I can't imagine them putting this movie out that time of year, but
Yeah,
I guess I'm wrong.
it's odd that they would put it out during that time, unless they were just banking on getting that most of their money back from that one weekend.
Well, and like you said, if it was the Thanksgiving, and then they're probably hoping that it stays in theaters
Carries over to Christmas.
into Christmas, and you get the kids going to see it because obviously this is an animated movie, and that's your main audience for this.
Yeah, for sure. But it would make more sense, yeah, to put it out in the summer with the blockbusters, especially riding high off of the success of Toy Story. But the executives decided to put it out in November for they thought that's where they were going to get most of their money, is that whatever that 4 or 5 6 week span it is in theaters.
Yeah. Now, this movie was, as I said, it was released in November of 1998. It was directed by um, the canceled man of animation, John Lasseter, and Andrew Stanton. It received a current, sorry, didn't receive it. Currently has a 7.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it is certified fresh with a 92% critic rating and a 72% audience. This time I'm siding with the critics because this movie is way better than the 7.2 or 72%.
Oh yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with the critic rating, which is rare when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes standards. I would give it no less than 90%, just because how much I enjoyed this movie in its entirety. Very little flaws to me this movie has.
Yeah, I only saw maybe a handful, if that, um, of things I wasn't really crazy on, and I'll get to those later.
Of course.
But no, this movie, this was a big success. The estimated budget was around 120 million, and the global box office it brought in just over 363 million. So clearly, they made a lot more than their money back on this movie.
Oh yeah, and I remember they did a huge market when it came to pushing the toys. I still remember, I don't know if it was Burger King or McDonald's, but they had the toys in their Happy Meals, and I remember it being a big deal when I was a kid, like trying to collect those because they were really, they were good, really solid uh, toys for the Happy Meals, and even beyond that, um, the toys that they had just at like toy stores, they for whatever reason I remember wanting them, and I guess mostly is because I was really a big fan of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many. I feel like there were so many different things they could have done with the toys because of the amount of characters and things that are in this movie that are they're not just characters but defined characters.
For sure. Especially, there's some characters that I think should have gotten more popular, only because there's characters that remind me of these characters that are very, very popular and have their own movies in different franchises and other studios.
Who are you referring to? Which characters specifically? And are you saying it
Mainly,
because of the characters or because of the actors that play them?
it's the characters.
Okay.
I think just because there's so many characters in this movie, which isn't a bad thing, but it might be when it comes to if you're trying to for kids to have like a favorite just because there's so many good ones. There wasn't too many like all around standouts, I guess. Only because the cast was so good.
Okay, who were the characters you're
For
referring
me
to?
personally, my favorite, they're actually one of my favorite characters, is those two twin bugs.
The pill bugs?
Yeah, they kind of remind me of like minions because they had their own language that was very similar to a minion. They were kind of didn't even really know what was going on. They were kind of knuckleheads, kind of like the minions. They just weren't as cute, and they were in a to me a less smart, less well written movie.
Yeah, I actually have a note here that just I just literally wrote down I love the pill bugs because
They're
they are
great. They're standouts,
they're
but
a lot of fun. And my favorite in terms of all the characters in this movie. Now, I've always liked Hopper just because of the way I like um, the way that the role is played, which of course is voiced by the monster Kevin Spacey.
yeah,
I hate I despise the man and everything he's done, but damn it if he doesn't give a phenomenal voice performance in this film.
yeah, man. I
But
mean,
I will say in terms of I like his character, but in terms of like my favorite in terms of enjoyment or who I think is the funniest, I got to go with Heimlich.
which one?
He's the big caterpillar.
Oh, okay, yeah, he's voiced by the dude from Everyone Loves Wayman. Is he?
No, that's
It sounds just like him.
no, that's Dim. That's the beetle.
Oh, who you're saying?
Heimlich, the
I.
green uh, caterpillar.
Oh, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, 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 okay. Sorry,
He's
sorry, sorry,
voiced
sorry.
by John. I'm gonna mispronounce this word, but
That's your favorite character?
Joe Rant. I think I don't know why when I was a kid, I thought he was just hysterical. Maybe it was because I identified with him because I was a big kid and whatnot. But
He
I always thought he was really funny. I mean,
he is.
now as I'm older, I still like him, but I kind of gravitate more towards Dennis Leary as the Ladybug, or I like
Yeah,
David Hyde Pierce as the stick bug.
for sure. That's the thing. There's so many. I think eh, m- there's not a character that I dislike in this movie. I think every single character to me I like on some level, and I just like some more than others. But I don't dislike any of the characters in this movie.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that statement. And for our listeners, normally I kind of run through um, kind of the high points of the cast, but I decided I don't think that's going to be
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a
really
lot of
easy to do in this. So I kind of figured we would just kind of discuss them. I was a little surprised actually when I was looking through the cast list here on IMDb, and I did not realize that Dot, the little princess, was voiced by Hayden Panettiere.
Okay.
I had
I didn't
no
know that
idea.
either. I didn't know that either. But now that I'm like going through her lines in other movies when she was young, yeah, it matches. It tracks.
Well, there
And
was
I
that.
love Dot. Dot is one of my favorite characters in this movie too. I think this is great. This is a great movie.
It might be worth even making
If
a
like,
point of
but unfortunately, movie would have been, if it would have been released in 2024, they would have called the character Dot like a woke type character.
Yeah,
Only be, only because like she's
it says that
great.
all
Like
this is
she's,
like
you know, a strong female character,
like
and we had those things back before these characters were called woke and in the forefront of these movies today, where
I don't know what it is.
they're making a point of having strong female characters and really making that the central point of these movies in 20 like currently, but we've always had these great strong female characters in movies, and Dot is a perfect example because she's like, if I had top five characters, she's probably number two or number three personally.
I would even say that her sister, the princess, the
Yeah,
future Queen Ada. Yeah, if you look at it through a lot of the movie, she's portrayed as very nervous and unsure of things. But when push comes to shove, in the end, she really kind of steps up and shows that leadership
yeah,
quality and things like
and
that.
exactly. But the movie even kind of tells you why she's nervous because she's the future queen. So she, she's probably under a lot of pressure. So that kind of makes sense why her character would, in the beginning of the movie, would be very, very nervous. And, it makes sense to me. The writing tells you why her personality at the time was very, very
Yeah,
nervous.
and her
But
mother.
never, yeah, you never see, none of these characters felt like a damsel at any point, even though some of them they were in danger at one point. None of them felt like a damsel, which, you know, it's, you did have those characters throughout cinema. And, this is a clear example of it.
Yeah, they're no, like you say, they're in danger, but nobody really feels like they're helpless.
They don't feel weak.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you want to look at a strong female, the woman, the queen, they're both of Dot and Ada's mother, voiced by the legend Phyllis Diller. Um,
Yeah.
she's a great character, and I love in the beginning when she sees that she has a pet. Um, oh my god, I can't even remember what it was called.
I don't even know. Was it like a pre-ant?
No, she
What
she
was that
called it
thing?
she called it something.
I
I
always
can't
thought it was like a fucking
like a larvae or something.
ant larva or something. Yeah, like I don't know.
No, it's
I
I
didn't
thought it
even.
was I thought it was a cicada, but I cannot remember. I'm gonna actually, while we're this is gonna be some great audio for our listeners, but I'm gonna actually look it up real quick.
I have it playing on my phone right now, but
I
there's
have
no
it on the
sound.
TV, but I'm way past that part.
Yeah, I'm past that part too. He's just going off on his journey right now. Flick, who is a great character too, man. He's as leads go, he's likable. You're rooting for him the entire movie. He's not weak. He's a genius. He doesn't really get much respect from, his people
He
up
gets
until
no
he's
respect.
later.
He's viewed as a screw up.
Exactly. And, you know, kind of a burden to the entire colony.
Okay, I just looked it up. Her pet, she calls him Aphie. He's an aphid, which is I believe is a very small type of bug, which I find kind of funny because it's us as humans. Obviously, we view ants as these tiny little minuscule things, and in this
Oh
movie,
yeah.
even them that small has a
Got
pet
their own.
that's even smaller than them. I
Yeah,
find that
which
kind of funny.
yeah, it's funny, it's clever, which is the is all over this movie. This movie is so well written, and there's so many clever things that they put in this movie, and they did their research, especially when it came to the insects and how insects move around and behave. Because I remember that's what Pixar was about for a long time, was they did heavy research on the things that they were writing about. If it was like, especially Finding Nemo, they did research on, fish, but I believe they did heavy research on insects in this
Oh,
movie, and it shows
it
with the
wouldn't
behavior.
surprise me at all because like you say, it shows that the inner workings, and it's funny when you look at the when you the world building in this movie in a set that's so small is made to be so massive. I mean, if you look at it, what they call Ant Island is literally just a tree.
Yeah,
Like it's something that us as human beings would walk by in a matter of seconds and not think twice about. But it's their entire world. Like everything that they know in life is in that area that would take us a matter of seconds to walk through. Even when Flick ventures out and goes to the quote unquote the big city, isn't it like just at the front of like a trailer? Like that's the entire city that he's referring to.
I think so.
Like, and I mean, again, just something like that all of us view as insignificant garbage or things that are on the ground. To these characters, their houses, their theaters, their all these different things.
Exactly. And like, yeah, my favorites like moments of the movie is when they are venturing in that like city, because so many funny funny scenes come out of that little bit of time that were spent within that city. Um, not not even including the introduction of all the warrior, quote unquote, warrior bugs,
Circus
um,
bugs.
circus slash fake warrior bugs. Um, yeah, yeah. It's definitely my favorite part of the movie is when uh Flick ventures into the city and we're introduced to the bugs.
That actually I have written down. I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite scene, but it is definitely my the funniest scene in my opinion is when they're in the circus and they do the flaming death scene.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, just the setup and of course we have the great Pixar alumni who's in, I believe he's in every single Pixar movie. John Ratzenberger as P.T. Flea, which I kind of find funny, like the P.T. Barnum comparison.
For sure.
He does the whole. He's very animated. Pardon the pun, but he's very animated in when he's discussing like what they're gonna do, and it's all gonna take only 15 seconds, and I'm gonna light this and the pill bugs, and then she's gonna come down and swing or spin the web, and and everything just goes horribly wrong, and he ends up going up in flames, and it's to me, even as a 37-year-old, I think it's absolutely hysterical.
Oh, it's funny. And even, what like the setup for it with the whole flies, hitting on the on the
Oh,
lady
on
bug.
Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I knew she
Because the audience doesn't know. We find out at the same time the flies find out, and it's just funny,
And it's a great
'cause-
way he does it, because I love that he flies over and he's kind of batting his eyes, and he just immediately goes, "Oh yeah, because I'm a ladybug. That automatically makes me a girl." And the
exactly.
even the facial expressions on the flies is like, "Oh fuck, what I do."
Right? And my, I'll my favorite bits, in that scene, the one is, I believe it's in that in when they're in that like that city thing, is when the was the fly catcher, or like that
The bug
light.
zapper.
Yeah, he's like,
It's
stop
so
looking at it. And he's like, I can't help it.
it's so beautiful.
I bursted out laughing, just
But
like
there's
I did when.
there's that. There's when he when he actually confronts the bugs in the quote unquote bar afterwards, and
Right,
the
and
waitress
right,
says, "Who ordered the poo poo platter?" And like three flies just land on top of it.
it's and then you got the mosquito who orders the Bloody Mary, and gets wasted. Um, my
And I love
favorite,
that they show his thorax, or whatever part of it is, actually expands like a mosquito does when it drinks the blood.
oh yeah, oh, exactly. It leads into the heavy research of each insect that they did, and they put it into the characters of this movie. It's great.
Yeah.
The one fly that's, says that I have 24 hours to live and I don't want to spend it here or something. I'm paraphrasing. So
I
that,
no, I took that note too. I like that they actually included that. Like, yeah, flies don't live very long.
but one of my favorite parts of that is, do you remember that one mime bug?
Yes.
It was just super random and it was super quick. But for some reason, for me, I got one of the biggest laughs during that whole scene. For some reason, I just laughed at it.
No, that was really good.
Yeah, and yeah, man, everything about when he goes into that city, and it's just comedic gold for me, man. It's so funny and well written and clever, and just encapsulates how well Pixar is at making a movie, man.
I mean, even if you go back to the beginning of the movie when it first shows them in the line bringing the food to what they call the offering stone, and I still laughed when I saw it when the leaf falls
Oh yeah,
and stops the line. You can go out there any day of the week and you can literally see ants doing that. And
exactly.
you drop something in front of them and they will just stop because they
They
don't know.
freak out.
And I get it, because like that would be like that would be like us going for a walk and all of a sudden like a 12-foot long, 10-foot high beam just falls in front of us. It's like, now where do I go?
Exactly. And how ants work is through um like pheromones and stuff, right? So that's how they're able to. They just know which way to travel, and if that is blocked off, yeah, they freak out and really don't know
Yeah,
what to do.
it's all on instinct.
Exactly. And they put that into the movie in a clever way, and again, it just shows you how brilliant these writers are or were when writing this movie.
Yeah. I mean, even another thing I really enjoyed was the actual like one of my favorite scenes of the movie is the introduction of the grasshoppers.
Oh, for sure.
Like you hear them talking about them, and oh, we've got to get the food ready, and we get the food, they eat the food, so on and so forth. But the whole thing of, I like when the guy starts blowing the shell, whatever, to let them know, like it's an alarm, and everybody starts freaking out. They're like, no, get the food in, get in the anthill. And then the last thing after Flick ruins it and knocks over the stone, you just hear the buzzing and that droning sound of the entire group of grasshoppers. It's such an ominous sound. And then you couple that with when they actually break through into the anthill. I mean, it would be a terrifying thing for a kid to see. I mean, I was 12 when I saw this, but if you're like a young child, I could see that fucking scaring the shit out of you. The way
Oh yeah,
the way that it's done, especially the way they animate the grasshoppers too.
exactly. And this is why one of the reasons why I love this movie is that it's one of the last movies that doesn't it's not it doesn't baby itself. It doesn't talk down to kids. It doesn't it even though there's not, full of graphic scenes or anything, they definitely don't shy away from it.
No, not at all. I mean, I like, you don't actually see it because it doesn't actually come to pass, but I like when the kids, they're almost like a group of scouts or Girl Scouts, whatever. Um, I like when they draw the big mural
Exactly.
when they're presenting it, and Heimlich is cut in half.
Oh, he's like, yeah, like,
And they're
yeah.
like, our teacher said we should draw one of you dying because it would look more dramatic. And they show him, and he is white with like he has just seen a ghost.
Oh yeah. There's other parts of that leaf picture that's graphic too.
Oh
There's like
yeah,
blood and stuff in it. And, if that you put that in a movie today, that would have been cut out for sure.
which is sad because
And
it's literally a drawing.
it's just a drawing. But, that's where we are today. That even stuff that's not wouldn't really be considered bad, especially at the time, like perfectly fine for a kid to see and not be completely traumatized. Then, now, parents would automatically assume that kids would be traumatized seeing something like this, and you wouldn't see it.
That's a whole different debate that I'm not really going to get into, but you're absolutely
Oh,
right.
no, 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 exactly. No, no, no. I appreciate these type of movies that don't, shy
Don't
away.
sugarcoat it.
Don't sugarcoat it. That's the perfect. Yeah.
But I think we've. I'd like to maybe try and get into the cast now as a whole. Kind of like I said, I think it's something we should kind of go run through together because there's a lot of names for me to just list them off and it'd be kind of boring. But um, so first we've already discussed like Hopper and Dot, things like that. But let's start at the top with Flick, and it's fucking superstar comedian. At least in my opinion, I think this guy's absolutely hilarious. Dave Foley does a fantastic job in this role. He has the right amount of boyish optimism, but at the same time, he's also not afraid to be realistic in what his expectations are, and even when he finds out that the quote unquote warrior bugs are just circus performers, he calls them out. He's like, "How could you not tell me? Like you've screwed all of us because you couldn't open your mouths."
Yeah, I appreciate how they written the character because yeah, he is very optimistic, but not too like
He's not naive, I don't think.
overly optimistic where, it's kind of nonsensical. He is
Yeah.
realistic and he does adapt and he does have character development in this movie, you know. Even though it's not a main thing in this movie, but it is there. Yeah, I definitely appreciated this this character, even though he's not my favorite. Um, Yeah, I think he's a very solid lead character.
It's weird for me seeing, and I know it's a voice performance, so you're not actually seeing the actor. But for me, it is a little strange to see Dave Foley, who's such a renowned comedian and comedic actor, play a role where, in my opinion, is very jokeless.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think the main thing that's funny about Flick is when everybody is kind of making fun of him. It's not actually him himself.
Yeah, he's just basically playing the straight man, and whatever comedy you get from him is him reacting to ridiculous situations that's happening around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Next, I want to bring up. Did you realize who voices Ada?
Is it the Black Widow?
No, Ada is the princess, the queen to be, Dot's older
Oh,
sister. Because I had no idea until I looked it up because it does
I,
not sound.
I know I heard that voice before, but I on the spot I couldn't think of the name. But I've definitely heard that voice before.
When I watched it, for this rewatch, I was like, it kind of sound, but I couldn't. Again, I couldn't place it. But then when I found out who it was, I went, no, that's not at all who I was thinking. It's fucking Julia Louis Dreyfus.
Is that Seinfeld?
Yeah, that's Elaine.
Oh, I
That
love
that did not track to me. That I
that.
was like,
Makes okay.
because I was
It
like, I know I've heard it, but to me, as soon as I saw that it was her, I was like, that doesn't make sense with what I was hearing. But all right,
I'd have to listen to it again with her in mind. But I'm a huge fan of her.
oh yeah,
So I could probably hear it if I heard it again.
no,
That's
that one
great.
I had trouble. I had a little bit of trouble seeing that one, but I mean, then to run through some of the warrior bugs, as I mentioned, we have David Hyde Pierce as Slim, John Ranft as Heimlich, who I actually, as I was looking this up, pulling this up on IMDb, he actually has a writing credit on this movie.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
Joe Ranft. I don't know why I keep reading John. Dennis Leary as Francis. Jonathan Harris, who I'm not really familiar with that name, plays Manny the praying mantis. One of my personal favorites, Madeline Kahn, who's big in a lot of the Mel Brooks movies, plays his wife Gypsy Moth. Sorry.
Okay, okay.
The Black Widow, you definitely know who that voice is.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's Bonnie Hunt.
That
That is, if you're trying to think of who it is, the first thing that I think of is she plays the wife in Cheaper by the Dozen.
oh yep. I was trying to think of a movie that she was in, and I kept thinking of other actresses in other movies. I was trying to fucking skim my way through. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's
I
exactly what I
was
thought it
waiting.
was.
I was waiting for you to go. Oh, you mean from Twister? Nope, that's Helen Hunt.
That's what I was, dude. That was one of the women. That was one of the people. I was like, no, it's not her. It's Helen Hunt. But it's because a lot of the '90s actresses, you kind of, if they weren't standout, you kind of grouped them together. And yeah, I definitely did that with her. And yeah, in that moment, that was funny. But yeah, I know exactly your.
And I only say that because I've heard that from people before. Like, wait, she was nope, nope. That's a different person with the same last name.
That's funny. That is funny. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And you were right. We do have Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond fame. He
It's
plays
perfect.
Dim. He plays Dim, who's like the I think he's like a beetle of some
Some,
kind.
yeah, he's some version of a beetle.
Yeah. I mean, just in that alone, in those 8, 9 people, whatever, you have some absolute legends doing these voice roles.
Oh yeah, all stars, all
And then
star cast.
I love Richard Kind as Molt. He's like Hopper's second in command.
Is that his brother? Isn't it his brother?
Yes, it is his brother because he says that he swore to his mother that he wouldn't kill him.
Yeah, he is funny.
He's
He
always
played.
funny. He's a really good comedic actor.
Hmm.
But yeah, this whole cast is fantastic, and like you say,
Yeah, each one of them
this.
knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah, and like you say, this movie it was a success when it came out. I remember. I mean, I maybe I don't remember it as well, only because I was 12, 13, whatever it was. But as you said, it's not remembered the way that Toy Story or Toy Story 2 is. And I mean,
Just not talked about as
as
much.
as much of a an achievement that Toy Story was, I feel that this is just as much of an achievement because, as I said earlier, this movie needed to do well.
For
I,
sure.
I think. I mean, granted,
I
they
mean,
had Toy Story 2 just a year later, but
yeah, I mean, at the same time, people were such fans as Toy Story. I'm sure people were in anticipation for the next project. And yeah, if they didn't, even if it was like super mediocre, yeah, I think it probably would have hurt their momentum. Um, e- I'll, e- only for a little bit to me, only because we know of all the classic movies that were to come. Yeah, I think it would have hurt its momentum, but only slightly
yeah,
if
absolutely.
this
I
movie
mean,
would have been better.
hindsight is 2020, so we can always look back and be like, well, obviously this was going to be successful, but they didn't know that at the time. And I mean, yeah, everybody was such a big fan of Toy Story that I'm sure the anticipation was, I can't wait to see what this studio is going to do next.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, they probably could have just kind of did the cop out thing and just made Toy Story 2 as the second movie that Pixar did, but they went this route, and I think that was the right idea, personally.
Yeah, it shows you that they're not a one-trick pony, that they have lots of great stories to tell.
Yeah. I mean, like even if you go if we start from the beginning of the movie, there's things all the way through it that I found incredibly enjoyable. I mean, even the very beginning, even though it's animation, I like the physical comedy aspect of it.
Yeah, man.
Um, and
Um,
the specific one I'm thinking of is when it shows Flick and he's using his invention to catch not catch but to gather the seeds, and he keeps launching the stalks and they keep hitting the princess in the face. I don't
yeah,
know why, but I could not stop laughing at that scene.
and to be honest, rewatching it, even just looking at it now, this movie came out in '98.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie still holds up. Like the technology is the graphics used is like it's still really good and doesn't look dated that much.
No, I don't think so either. I will say
Very well
this.
animated.
I will say this though. This movie, in terms of animation, might be ahead of Toy Story, and I will only say this
Oh yeah.
because, well, I will say that because this movie does not feature any humans. That's where Toy Story loses it because they didn't, especially the first one, they didn't know how they, not that they didn't know how to, but their animation of humans was borderline nightmare fuel. Like
Yeah.
the way that
Yeah. I
Aunt
mean,
Andy and his sister looked, they were terrifying.
oh yeah. And when you didn't know it back then, and I didn't know it if nobody really pointed it out. But yeah, there's a scene in Toy Story, I think it was Andy's birthday, where every character or every kid in that scene was just a version of Andy. They literally, it all looks like the same character, just different hair color.
Yeah,
So yeah, they were very limited at the time with the capabilities of their animation.
which is odd because even in that movie, they can do all different designs and shapes and features on the toys. Why doesn't that translate to the humans? I've never understood that, and maybe somebody who knows more about animation or graphic design would be able to explain that to me, but I've never understood that.
Yeah, yeah. I think. Yeah, you are right. I didn't really think about it. That yeah, there's no human characters, but even like the way that because these are humanoid esque personalities in these characters, and they have to have the expressions of humans, and even like, a lot of them don't have noses and whatnot. I think just it the way they express themselves is still very like fluid and solid, and it doesn't look like it was made in the late 90s like some other projects at the time.
No, it really doesn't. I think this type of animation, you can tell that it's a bit older, but I still think that it's going to
Yeah,
hold up for a long time. Um,
yeah.
Now, I haven't actually looked into this. I'm actually going to do it while I'm speaking right now because there is a little movie that came out. Yep, the same year as this. That this movie is always compared to, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, because it's the Other Ant movie.
Exactly. I believe this is a DreamWorks
I
film. I could be wrong, and if I
think it
am,
is.
I apologize. I don't want to disparage that in any way. But that would be the movie Ants.
It
Um,
was a Z
yeah, with a Z
and Z.
because it was the '90s and that was the cool way to do things. Yeah, it was DreamWorks. Okay, good. Um, I were you an Ants or a Bug's Life? Because I feel like I don't. I don't remember my friends being divided, but I can imagine kids maybe just a couple years older being like, I'm an Ants kid or I like a Bug's Life. Or do you remember where you fell on that, or did you just kind of like
I,
both?
I liked both, to be honest. Like myself being a huge cinephile, um, from two parents who are also cinephiles. We just loved movies. I wasn't in any camp. I liked A Bug's Life more because as a kid, the humor appealed to me. I think Ants the it was made for a bit older audience, not like if Bug's Life is for maybe 3 and above, Ants was probably for like 10, 11, 12, maybe like 15 and above. It's a little bit older to really appreciate that movie.
Now, so I will say that I did prefer a Bug's Life. Um, I haven't seen Ants probably 15 to 20 years. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I remember
Literally,
liking it, just not
literally the
really.
only thing I remember about it is Stallone being like some gigantic worker ant.
Well,
That's
he
all I
was
remember about that movie.
he was an army ant. He switched roles
That's what it
with
was.
what was it, Woody Allen's character, who was
Yeah.
a worker ant. They switched, and like Woody Allen's ant character went into war. There was a whole war thing, and it was
Hey, I
like
mean,
Star Trek Troopers in a way. With I remember one scene being very similar to Starship Troopers, which again at the time I recognized what I was seeing, but I didn't really fully appreciate it because I was too little to really comprehend really that, and I gravitated more towards like Pixar and A Bug's Life for sure.
I will say at least neither one of these movies are nearly as problematic as an insect movie that would be made much later in B movie. Neither
Who would
neither
have
one of the
known, right?
neither
Who
one
would
of
have
these
known?
movies had an insect who wanted to have sex with a human.
True. B
Because
movie is
good
a
lord,
whole
that
nother
whole
level.
movie is just that movie is batshit bananas.
I think almost every insect movie has either a actor that slash director that's kind of not the most popular, or yeah, you're a part of yeah, just controversy for sure, because Woody Allen, his whole thing, and then you had Kevin Spacey
Lassiter.
exactly. Yeah, that's just, if you're a part of a bug movie in the late 90s, yeah, you're just, yeah, there's some
Oh,
problems
B
attached to it.
B movie was in the
Oh
2000s.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then B movie, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just the weirdest.
Now I'm going to
That's
ask, where do you stand as an adult? You're what, 36, 35?
36.
Okay. So as an adult of that age, where do you stand on animated movies? Now I know that this movie was part of our childhood and it's nostalgic, but even like new animated movies, like when Disney or Pixar comes out with a new movie, are you chomping at the bit to see it, or is it one of those like I don't watch that anymore, or maybe I'll see
When it
it on
comes
a
to
casual viewing?
when it comes to Pixar, it lost a little bit of its credibility with me, with you know a lot of mediocre movies, but I do appreciate them. Like, there's some standouts in the last 10 years. Like, Frozen's really good, even though I didn't watch it at the time. Like, I only
But that's
recently
not
watched
that's not
recently.
Pixar.
Oh, that's Disney, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Disney
okay.
animated. Disney animation
Got it.
is Frozen. I know I
So
get them all mixed up all the time
I
too.
do, I do, I do, do.
But at
Um,
this point now that I believe Disney does currently still own Pixar, I just kind of always trump them all together. Like to me, it's just Disney slash Pixar. Like it's either or.
yeah, because when you have to like separate, yeah, it's just yeah, you're definitely just gonna. It's better just to clump them together. Um, but I like, when it comes to animation, I still watch them. It's just I recognize that Pixar, Disney Pixar, whichever, the writing is hit and miss. But I do like quite a few of the films that have come out recently by them. As animated movie as a whole, I'm still a huge fan. Uh, One of my favorites recently was the even though the animation style is kind of rough, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was very well written.
I actually haven't
Different,
seen that yet.
different, but still, um,
You're talking what's that, Mutant Mayhem or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, I
very,
haven't
very,
seen that yet.
that's very good. And the Into the Spider-Verse series, the Miles Morales, Sony, uh, going to be a trilogy, but only two of them
I
has
still
this
have
recording.
yet to
Oh,
see. I still have yet to see Across the Spider Verse.
oh, it's great.
As much as I want to, I just haven't gotten around to it or had the opportunity. Um, I'm looking at right now. I'm just kind of looking at the list of the Pixar movies that have come out, and I will also say I'm a huge fan of animated movies. I don't care when I'm 80 years old, I'll still be watching animated movies.
Yeah, because the whole animated movies being for children is very Western uh way of thinking. When you go overseas, especially to Asia or Japan, they treat their animation just like
with a lot more respect and
exactly.
reverence.
Exactly. It's for everybody. It's for adults, it's for little kids. They have categories and levels. They have more kiddie animation for the kids, and they have a very adult animation for the adults, and they appreciate it. It's not tied to one group of people.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
for some reason, that's just how Western society views animation. And now that the millennials are getting older, and we're haven't really changed much when it comes to still being fans of these things. Yeah, we're gonna be watching animation for forever.
Well, I
Like
think now hear me out on this. I think as you're saying that, I kind of had a thought, and I think that a lot of why animation is viewed that way is when our parents or the older generations were younger, the only animation they had was like the little short Saturday morning cartoons. There weren't, yeah, there were the Disney movies, but not the way they are now.
it was slowly coming up because I believe the first primetime animated show to come out was like the Flintstones. That was the first one to come out like prime time.
But that was a
Like,
show. I'm talking more movies.
oh, you're talking about movies. Okay.
So like, yeah, you had
Yeah.
obviously like
No.
the old Snow White and Cinderella and Peter Pan and Dalmatians and all those that were older. But nowadays, like you're talking back then, there was years probably between animated movies. Nowadays, you get like four a year. So we, at our generation that grew up watching them, our parents would always look back and be like, "Well, that stuff's for kids, this and that." But because we were exposed to it, I believe so much more readily, because obviously
Hmm.
the consumption of media to our generation and the younger generations is so much more vast and immediate than it was for our parents and the older generations,
Yeah.
that we were inundated with animation, whether it be TV shows or movies, or that as we grow up, or as we've grown up into adults, to us it's just like, yeah, it's animated, but anybody can watch it. Like, it doesn't mean that it's just for kids. Does that mean that I'm going to go and watch like a Barbie movie, that like a Barbie animated movie that's geared towards 6 year olds? No. But these mainstream ones, absolutely.
For sure.
Because even at
And
our age, we are, even if we don't like, even if the story seems a bit childish, there's always something for us to enjoy, even if it's literally looking at the accomplishment in the animation itself.
yeah, or just there's a lot of those type of movies. There's humor for adults that kind of goes over kids' heads, but adults appreciate and will laugh at.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Disney is a big part of the progression of animation being taken more seriously by like the masses and not put in a category as just for kids. I think a lot of it, yeah, star had to do with like the Snow Whites, um, and like the Bambis and all that. But I think what really got the ball rolling is when, what was it? Was it Lion King that was nominated for Best Picture?
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and Beast.
That was the first animated movie to be nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, I
And that
think
was,
that
I
was.
want to say it was 91.
Hmm. And I think that what like officially got the ball rolling when it comes to putting more respect on these animated films because it is
Yeah, because once you're nominated
recognized
for
by the
Best
Academy.
Picture,
Yeah.
I think it opened a
And
lot of eyes like, yeah, there really might be something to this.
right. And the Academy got scared and they actually because of that the next year didn't they now they have an com- animated movie category.
No, you're a little off on the years. That
Yeah, I'm not sure when it
I
but I
can't believe
know
I can't believe I'm such
that
a
was the
nerd that I
reason
know
why they
this.
did it.
No, well, the reason they actually, I don't know if this is the actual reason, but a lot of people believe that it is. So, the first animated feature, sorry, something caught in my throat. The first Academy Award given for an animated feature was for Shrek. That was the first time that award was ever given.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Shrek was in '01, so that would have been in 2002 at the Oscars. And a lot of people make the joke that the Academy just created that award to give Shrek the award.
Okay.
Obviously, in years since, it's taken on more than that, and it's actually become a very revered thing to win. Um, but at the same time, I don't understand why animated movies can't be nominated for Best Picture themselves. I mean, even things there. I mean, again, the Oscars is a whole other debate. and I personally love the Oscars. I know it's very political, this and that, but I've always been a big fan of it. I watch it every year. I get very excited with the anticipation to watch it, and I think that's just my inner film nerd. Um,
Yeah,
but
I
I
think
I think
part of
it,
the
I think they
reason,
should be nominated for Best Picture. At least have the ability to.
yeah, but only until the younger generation has the majority deciding factor, or at least the most voting power, is when we'll see that. I think it's still majority of the older generation. That's why these movies will, animated movie probably won't see a best picture for,
A
for
while. Yeah.
for a
No,
while.
I
And you
completely get
haven't
what you're
seen one in
saying.
a while. Yeah, exactly. I think that has to do with it. The old guard is still,
I
up
will
there.
just say this, and I've heard this on other podcasts discussed, and I think it's a fantastic idea. While we're on the topic of the Oscars, just really quick, I think that they should create an Oscar for best performance by a stunt man or stunt team.
They're considering it.
Okay, maybe that's why I've been hearing it on podcasts recently, because that's a group of people in Hollywood that does not get anywhere close to the respect they deserve. And if they get that in, we might finally get Tom Cruise his Oscar.
I think they should do that, and they should do unless there is a category for motion capture actors too.
I think it would. I think it's just all rolled in with special effects.
I think that should also get its own separate, just because of how
Because
much.
Because you want Andy Serkis to win 5 Oscars.
Give him at least one, at the very least an honorary one. But yeah, he definitely, paved the way for that being looked at as an art. And it is, because the use of it now is
Plus,
overrun now within movies, that I think it's dumb not to
well, now
consider.
it's. I think they're getting to the point where they're starting to use that, and to bring it full circle and back to what we're talking about. I think they're starting to use motion capture for animation, for animated movies.
Hmm. They've always done it, depending on, which movie decided to use that style. But yeah, it's being used a lot more, for sure.
Uh, we've gone a complete tangent away from this movie. I apologize, but
That's
um,
okay. It's only a 90-minute movie. It's very tight,
it
and
is.
so.
It's a very tight movie. It's a good solid story. I mean, there is a very concise hero's journey here in the movie. Um,
What I appreciate is how many, like, kind of movies that it becomes within 90 minutes, because, like, let me go down to my notes here, because you got, like, the typical kids movie, and then when Flick is recruiting the warrior bugs, it has a shade of, it reminds me of, like, the Magnificent Seven. So it has a bit of like that Western feel to it. And towards the end of the movie, out of nowhere, the movie kind of becomes like a war movie in one scene, with like sound effects of bombs being dropped, and like the vibe of that scene kind of feels like it's ripped right out of like a World War II movie.
that final scene, not in the final scene, but the climax of the movie with the bird that they make, the ants make,
Oh yeah, the bird
that
too, man.
that's a fantastic scene. The whole, like you say, it really does seem like a chaotic war scene.
That, plus when the raindrop falls.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay attention to the sounds, it sounds like
You get the
they purposely
whistling and
put
then like almost the
the
explosion as it hits.
exactly. So it gave the illusion of like a war scene. I appreciate how many flavors that they were giving us. And yeah, and that freaking bird, it didn't look terrifying. It was actually a pretty cute bird, but I've never seen a more cute bird feel terrifying in any movie. I
Yeah.
was scared as shit of that bird, man.
I will say that's one of my knocks against this movie, and it's not that one, it's the actual bird. I wasn't crazy on the way they animated that, but that's just me personally. And
Okay.
I think the reason is because it was such a minor antagonist in this movie. I don't think they paid it as much attention as they did the other characters. So I don't feel there was as much detail in the bird. It just felt like it was just kind of there. I
Yeah, it
mean,
was kind of
I
just
think that,
treated as like a threat and nothing more.
and that's
But
fine.
like
It's just
to
the
me,
way.
it worked. I have no really complaints. I feel like they kind of knew what they were doing. But yeah, when it comes to the detail of the bird, sure, I'm actually just past that scene when you see the bird for the first time. Uh, yeah,
I get that there's
it's not.
they put the detail in the face because you get a real close up of it.
But when it comes to its feathers or its,
Yeah, there's not much. It just kind of looks like blotted colors.
yeah, if you want, yeah, okay, I see where you're coming from. I would have to really like what I'm doing now, go back, look at it up close to really even see that, but I could see why it would bother you for sure, or at least be somewhat of a nitpick.
But yeah, that's my biggest gripe with this movie. I really don't have much else in terms of negativity. I mean, as we've kind of said, the story is really tight and really concise. The casting is fantastic. The acting, the performances, regardless of who is doing the performing, they're all great. I mean,
Yeah, they put respect on most every bug. There's one character that they didn't put any respect on, and I'm just gonna say because he's older. But my understanding of how this bug is in reality, this guy should have been the most terrifying. Was the praying mantis? I
yeah,
seen I seen videos of praying mantises taking down like lizards and birds. They're incredible and like top of the food chain when it comes to insects.
yeah.
But I'm just gonna go with he was a little bit older, so he didn't have that dog in him. Like I see other praying mantises, but that again, that for nitpicks, that's mine.
One of the little details that I actually liked um, was the Black Widow. Rosie is her name, voiced by Bonnie Hunt, as we said earlier. When they're all kind of congregating together, when they're I forget what scene it is exactly, but she's talking to some of the other ants, and they just kind of cut to her in mid conversation, and she just kind of casually goes, "And that's how my 12th husband died."
Right? So she says you can call me a black
She's like, "Yeah,
widow.
I'm a
Widow.
widow. Well, you can call me a black widow."
It's funny. Yeah,
So
yeah.
she's killed 12 husbands.
Right? It's just
But that
the
was a
little
joke that
inter
when I was a kid, I don't think I would have right away been like, "Oh, okay, she killed them." But now as an adult and I know how things like that work, I just found it extra funny.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is, when you're a kid, you're not those things will definitely go over your head. And
Yeah,
you might chuckle as a kid, but you don't even know what you're chuckling at.
no,
But as an
it's
adult,
because other people are.
exactly. As an adult, yeah, you notice it, you appreciate it, and yeah, you laugh at those type of jokes because they're kind of scattered throughout this movie, man. It's very, very clever the way they inject the humor with these characters. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, when you look at you can go back and rewatch almost any animated movie, and there's going to be things that you're going to find that you never noticed before. And I think a lot of that is because when we were kids, we would watch these movies and we would pay attention to the big set pieces or the visuals. Whereas
Hmm.
a lot of the dialogue, kids would be like, I don't really care what they're saying. Like, I just want to see the action. But then as you're an adult, you pay attention to that dialogue and what's being said and the little nuances there. And I mean, I personally find it very amusing.
Exactly. And this movie doesn't have anything that dates itself when it comes to references. You're not reference any like celebrity or any situations that would have happened during that time, which which makes this movie timeless.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, man.
I couldn't agree more.
I think this is incredibly underrated, and it's a shame that it doesn't get the appreciation that it deserves.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I did like, and again, this is something I wouldn't have picked up, even though it's hand fisted, I probably wouldn't have picked up on it much as a kid, is um oh my God, I can't even think of what it's the foreshadowing, that's the word I was thinking pre something, but the foreshadowing of when they show the grasshoppers in their hideout, which I don't know if you noticed, they're in an old sombrero.
Oh yeah. I noticed that.
um, when they're there and they talk about like, oh, why don't we just ignore the ants? And Hopper says to him because, and he uses the grain as an example where he kind of starts throwing them like, oh, he throws one like, oh, did that hurt? No. Throws another one. Well, did that hurt? No. And then he just rips the thing off and he goes, how about now? And like hundreds bury these two grasshoppers. And he says, they outnumber us like 100 to 1. And if they ever found that out, we're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you kind of just put it together as like together we can stand up to bullies, and you take it as that. But if you look deeper, you can say that that whole thing, all Hopper's motivation is we need to keep them in line, um, and not knowing him knowing the strength of numbers and the ants not realizing it. You can actually equate that to like the government.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Absolutely.
wanted to go political with it, there's that side to it too.
Well, there's the political side. There's the argument pro and anti labor agreement or arguments. There's all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, Flick's whole thing of just wanting to help with his inventions and not giving up.
Which fuck those ants because that invention that he shows at the beginning of the movie that collects the grain, they would have been done in like a third of the time.
Yeah, but again, these ants are old in their old ways, and they needed to be challenged, and they were challenged throughout this movie. And you see that with them, the character development at the end of the movie and them actually working with Flick with his inventions. I guess that was just a way to, show that there was development within the entire ant colony. They have to really hate on him in the beginning. Almost too much.
It is because I also will say, and I didn't even think of it till I was doing this rewatch, the scene where he volunteers to leave to go find warrior bugs, and then it shows him leaving, and he's got his pack and his hat on, whatever, and he says the colony's in good hands, and then he goes over the crest of that hill, and you just hear all the ants cheering and applauding. The first thing that popped into my head, and it's probably because I've seen this movie a billion times, was the beginning of Ace Ventura 2 when the monks go crazy when they find out he's
Oh
leaving.
yeah, yeah. There's similarities there. That's funny. Yeah.
But when you're when you're talking about the strength and we were talking about the strength and numbers thing, and then we brought up Andy Serkis, I kind of just want his head to pop in and go, "Ant together strong."
Right. That would have been great. They put it in the movie, but no. Yeah, no, it's so many messages within a 90-minute movie, man, and those are just examples of it. Another one that you could, if you're really looking and searching, especially in 2024, the whole ladybug and assuming one's gender.
Absolutely.
You can actually, there's that shade of it too, which it's a bit of ahead of its time, especially in 1998.
Which it was another thing I didn't realize until I did this rewatch. When you look at the ladybug character, whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head, Francis is is his name. When they show him, yeah, he obviously from the back, you see the red with the black dots and things like that. But when you see his face, it almost looks like he's wearing blush, and he's got like very pronounced eyelashes.
Yeah, I remember the eyelashes and the blush for sure.
Yeah,
in that moment, they definitely wanted the audience, to believe that those flies were talking to a actual ladybug.
Yeah, they animate him very femininely, and then the voice of Dennis Leary comes out of it, and I mean, I obviously wasn't an adult when I first saw this, but I could imagine being an adult and kind of even then being taken aback, like, what?
Exactly. They don't really like point it out. It's just there, and they kind of, you just roll with it.
Yeah.
Which is I like that character, so I appreciate,
No, I think he does a really good job, and then he ends up becoming like the honorary den mother of Dot's Girl Scout group, whatever they're called.
That, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. That, again, it's great, man.
And I didn't realize until this, while I was watching it again and kind of really paying a really close attention. She's a very inconsequential character, but they refer to her as Dr. Flora. She's one of the ants that are part of like the council type thing, whatever they call it. Is voiced by Edie McClurg, who, if you don't know who that is, she's a hilarious character actress, and she's probably, at least in my recollection, most known for she plays the secretary in Ferris Bueller.
Okay.
Who is I think she's just hilarious. And as I was watching the movie, I went, God, that sounds like Edie McClure. And I looked it up and I said, oh, it is. And she's one of my favorite parts, at least I will say, of Ferris Bueller. So that's why that voice is so ingrained in my head.
That makes sense.
And yeah, this was the second of probably 20 movies, if not, that he's done. John Ratzenberger.
Oh yeah.
I think he is in every single Pixar movie, and if he's not, he's only missing out of like one of them. Yeah,
he's like the good luck charm that they put in every movie. He's like the new or he's the I think before he was like the Alan Tudyk, before Alan Tudyk was in every Pixar movie.
Well, Alan Tudyk's, I think, just in every animated movie now, because he's so talented in terms of voice acting.
Exactly, but he's like the new good luck charm when it comes to animated movies. But before, it was that,
Yeah. Of course, he started obviously in Toy Story as Ham, and then he goes on to this, and just he's in every one. He's even if it's just a role where it's just a couple little lines, but it's gotten to the point now, if I watch a Pixar movie, that all I have to do is hear his voice, and I just kind of have like a sigh of relief, and a smile kind of comes across my face, like, oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna have a role in Pixar movie when they make one, no matter how big or small.
Yeah.
Just because it's tradition now.
Yeah, now it's become to be it's come to be expected. It's, as much as I hate the way they do it, it's like watching a Star Wars movie and them not saying I've got a bad feeling, which I really hate that they do that in every movie, but it's come to be
Or
expected at this point.
or like a Marvel movie with a Stan Lee cameo, when he was alive, R.I.P. Stan Lee. You know
Or
you were
any
getting one.
or Chris Evans. I can do this all day.
Mm-hmm.
There's just those things that it's like they keep putting back in because it's almost like a safety blanket that fans are like, oh, okay, that's better. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean personally, I've kind of gone through all my notes here. I don't know if there's anything else that you had wanted to kind of discuss.
I just wanted to point out, we mentioned it throughout the movie, but I don't think we got its spotlight. Is the sound effects, man? It was super effective. You pay attention to whenever, and the entire vibe that you get just solidifies it. Whenever Hopper, first of all, his group, they're a biker gang.
Oh, 100%.
Because every time Hopper is about to leave, he says, "Let's ride." And if you're paying attention to the sounds as they're leaving, it kind of sounds like motorcycles.
Yeah, it's that droning revving.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but in any movie where there's a group like that and somebody says "Let's ride," I don't know why. There's something about it that I've always loved. And I don't know what it is.
Maybe, are you a Transformer fan?
Isn't everybody?
Well, Autobots roll out. I mean,
Yeah, that's a big one too.
I think that's probably why. Probably still, anybody that says something similar to that, you kind of get those same chills, I guess.
Yeah.
I also wanted to point out that this movie probably has, out of Disney, Pixar, any type of animated movie, I think it has even though you don't see the whole effect, it's got the worst death with Hopper.
Hopper being eaten.
Yeah, you got torn apart.
Are you saying that's the worst death in Pixar or all animation?
I'd have to really look when it comes to all animation, but definitely Disney Pixar
Because
animation.
the first one that comes to mind for me would be a Disney movie, and the only reason
A
I
Disney
say it,
movie? Oh, Disney movie.
yep,
Oh, like Tarzan?
Tarzan.
But see,
It's the silhouette of Clayton hanging.
which is worse? A person hanging that's looking like he's already dead, or being eaten to death? I think it's just the eye of the beholder when it comes to that. But
I also think I also think that most people would say the Tarzan one for two reasons. One, because you don't see him, but you at least see his shadow, his silhouette. So it's visceral right there for you to see.
there's
The
less up for imagination when it comes to this death than the other one, because you actually kind of see the body,
Yeah.
even though it's in shadow. Okay, I see what you're saying.
The other one would be, and I don't. Hopper's a grasshopper. Clayton's a human being. So
True, but like
I think people would
you
view
don't
that as two
think about
different
it in those
things.
moments. You kind of it's true, but you like humanize. You kind of
Oh,
humanize when you're
absolutely,
watching
because
it, like
they're all walking on their hind legs and
exact, and they all have personalities like people. To I guess it's just personally, I think this is
oh, it's bad.
one
Don't
of
get me wrong.
like top three worst deaths. I think it's currently number one without going to the backlog of Disney villain deaths.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. It's bad.
Or Pixar. Yeah, it's bad, but you just don't see it. But yeah, I just think
In a movie that's a lot of fun, it's a big left turn.
for sure. And yeah, again, it doesn't help when I don't know if it's more effective or less effective when the birds aren't drawn or animated to be scary. They're just cute looking birds. I don't know if that makes it more terrifying or less terrifying, but for me, it made it a little bit more scary.
Yeah, I also think that like the view of the camera going into their mouths.
And how terrified Hopper is.
Oh, yeah,
He is going through it for sure.
But I do like almost the very next scene. You see that his brother is joined with the circus bucks.
Oh yeah, he's that makes sense. That tracks.
He just latches onto anybody and anything that he can.
He's not about that typical grasshopper life. He just wants to be his bubbly, doofus, dorky self.
And he just wants to live.
He just wants to live. You know what I mean? He's chill. He's, I appreciate that they gave, some closure with a lot of the characters. And, like I'm glad that they showed that because they didn't have to.
But yeah, like I said, I've kind of exhausted my notes and kind of things that I wanted to talk about. So if you've kind of done the same, I think we should move into our closing thoughts and give this one a rating.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first this time. Yeah, as we've said multiple times, this is probably, if not the most, one of the top 2 or 3 most underrated Pixar movies. I will say right now, it is way better than any of those fucking Cars movies.
I have it above Cars. I have it above like a lot of the newer ones.
Yeah,
that have come out recently.
Off the top of my head, I would put Toy Story above it. I would probably put Monsters Inc. above it. The Incredibles would be a close one. Those would probably be kind of neck and neck. Finding Nemo, I really love, but
Yeah,
I really think this is as we said before, this is very underrated in terms of what this movie should mean to the world of animation. But yeah, it's like we said, it's fantastic animation that still holds up. What, 26 years later? The acting is great, albeit by some not overly great people, but from a few tiny little nitpicks that we had, I think this is it's damn near a perfect movie. I would give this movie an 8.5 out of 10, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. If you've never seen it, sit down and watch it. You will not be disappointed. And if you have seen it, go back and give it a rewatch, because you're going to find stuff in it that you didn't realize was there, and I guarantee you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, aside from the very few nitpicks that we gave, I agree that this is to me a perfect movie. I don't think you could have added anything to make it better. Maybe you could, but it still would have been a perfect movie as it is. This is a movie that you can enjoy in your 3 all the way up to 93, 103. You will still chuckle, you will still laugh, you'll still appreciate it. I recommend this movie for anybody who hasn't seen it and is a fan of Pixar, Disney, or just animation movies in general. Even if you're not, if you just like a good, solid story in a movie, I recommend watching this. This movie balances so much with so little time. Characters, everyone knocks it out of the park. Everyone's great. There's no annoying character. The humor, top notch. Yeah, I'm glad that I rewatched this. I definitely have a newfound respect for it. I give this a 9.
Yeah, that's a solid rating. I kind of figured you were coming in a little bit higher than mine was. Yeah, it's like we both said, it's a fantastic movie, and I think everybody should take a look and give it another watch. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Geeked Out. And as always, give us a follow on our socials, and you can reach out to us through there or send us an email, all of which will be posted in the show notes. And as always, we would like to remind you, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And we are available on Spotify, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube now as well. Everywhere that pretty much you can listen to podcasts, except I still cannot. I'm still having trouble getting us on Apple Podcasts, but I will succeed at that one day. Now, as far as our next episode, we have decided we're going to watch something from after watching Bad Boys 2 for our last one. We both kind of wanted to get a little bit more Martin Lawrence. We just can't seem to decide on which movie we're going to watch. So over the next few days, we're going to kind of hammer that out between the two of us, and I will be.
Might as well just have to watch all of them then.
We might. I don't know, but we'll be posting on our socials what movie we're going to watch for any of you that want to watch along with us ahead of time and hear what we have to say about it. But until next time, thanks everybody for listening, and thank you for subscribing. Take it easy.
Peace.